Nintendo is standing one last chance among consumers in the hardware business, and with the Nintendo Switch, it's no secret that Nintendo is really trying to push their rethink the way you game philosophy that they've been known for doing in the past decade and a half. The Wii popularized the use of motion controls in video games. It was so popular that Sony and Microsoft tried to capitalize on its success with peripherals for their existing system. But the fad faded quickly before it could enter into the dangerous world of the 2010s. The Wii U was a hard sell back in 2012, but the time killer games came out for it, it was too little too late. And by that time, all gamers cared about is the brains in the console, rather than how you play. It's almost like we want to watch video games instead of play them. But Nintendo once again stormed into the scene, this time with the Nintendo Switch, changing the way you play video games once again. It had a really rough start, with only a handful of games at launch. It doesn't even help that only 3 to 4 games are on physical. But now that it's May, and a few more games have come out, and I finally decided not to hold off this review for like the 36th time, is it worth the $299 MSRP? If you know how to plug in cables, setting up the system for the TV is mere child's play. Open the door, plug in cables, shut the door, insert the system, and that's it, you're ready to go. If you're like me and have inserted game cartridges in the past, the feeling of putting the system in the dock may feel a bit strange. Most of the dock is just air, but aligning the system is fairly straightforward once you've hit rock bottom. The dock has 3 USB Type-A ports, 2 2.0 ports, and one 3.05 gigabit port tucked away underneath the door between the HDMI out and USB Type-C port. Oh, have I not mentioned this yet? The Switch uses a USB Type-C connector. This means you can charge it with any box standard cell phone charger. Well, some of them anyway. The thing is, the port is on the bottom of the console, which means you can't exactly use the system propped up on its flimsy kickstand while charging. There is an accessory called the Playstand, which allows you to stand the system up while charging. But after paying all the expenses, I am not willing to pay the extra $17 price tag they put on this piece of plastic. Speaking of the kickstand, I don't exactly appreciate the fixed angle. I would have liked to see the option to adjust the kickstand like the Microsoft Surface tablets. I would have excused this issue if the angle didn't suck the big one. Even tablets with cases with a pseudo kickstand uses a more comfortable viewing angle. Also, the system can easily fall over if you attempt to put the kickstand on anything that is not a hard surface. The kickstand also hides the micro SD card slot, so you have to open it whether you like it or not, but we'll touch on that a bit later. Overall, the kickstand's pretty meh. It does the job, but I'm almost gravitating towards buying the playstand. Before we move on to the next chapter, I'm going to briefly talk about specs. The Switch apparently uses a bog standard NVIDIA Tegra X1 chip, so while it may not be as powerful as the Xbox or the PS4, it certainly is powerful enough to put in tens of thousands of blades of grass, lots of foliage, and a building. The system also has 32 gigs of inbuilt storage with the microSD card slot hidden under the kickstand as mentioned earlier. The system can accept up to a 2TB microSD card, which is not even a size that's out yet. As of 2017, the highest microSD XC card you can get is 512 gigs, so it's able to hold as much stuff as the PS4 and the Xbox One, but that's soon about to change. The screen only has a 720p resolution, but it's actually pretty sharp. Compared to a TV, or at least my TV, the colors may seem desaturated. What's more, the screen is made of plastic instead of glass. It may scratch easier, but the good news is that you won't be cutting yourself anytime soon. The speakers aren't the best that I've heard, but they are on par, if not slightly better than the speakers on the Nintendo 3DS. There's also this really tiny thing right here. What's that for? That's an ambient light sensor. That's right, the screen has auto brightness if that's your thing. The specs could be worse, but it certainly is acceptable considering the difficulty of putting full desktop GPUs and processors while keeping the system cool and without eating up the battery more than it already does. The battery only lasts 3 to 6 hours depending on the game. I would have appreciated a bigger battery, that's for sure. Specs are obviously not Nintendo's primary focus, unlike other consoles, but how to really stand out from the crowd. I've pretty much saved the best for last, the controllers, or Joy-Cons. They're pretty easy to slide on and off of things. The left one has an analog stick, capture button, and a D-pad as individual buttons. Uh-oh, that's not good. Nintendo's cross-shaped D-pad is a popular one. They even had a patent on it in one point in time. But this time they decided to forego that design in favor of this one. It's pretty bad. It's almost impossible to roll your thumb on it, and you can press the whole thing down at once. I've never seen a Nintendo console with a horrible D-pad, but now I've seen it. They did this to allow for the local multiplayer feature that's a part of their advertising, but still, that feature may be great, but the sacrifice of physical D-pad is unacceptable. The right Joy-Con has a bunch more gadgets on the left. You have your standard A, B, X, Y buttons that was so popular with this NES, another analog stick with the NFC with Amiibo support, the home button, and an IR motion camera. Both Joy-Cons have triggers on the back, but the ZL and ZR triggers aren't analog. They're digital buttons again, much like the Wii U. There are also SL and SR buttons for its multiplayer features, but I'll get to that in a bit. Both Joy-Cons have HD Rumble. It's basically surround sound, but instead of listening, you feel it. You can feel objects inside of your controller, but the feeling doesn't seem real enough. The only thing I found interesting about the vibration motors is that they can stop abruptly. The Switch is technically the first portable console that has vibration capabilities. And I say technically because things like Pokemon Pinball came out with a vibration motor for the Game Boy. It's also the first portable with multiplayer built in. You can enjoy games with friends and take the fun with you to, say, a picnic. The consequence of this built-in multiplayer with the Joy-Cons is that the controller's design is more stacked, which means the controller is also uncomfortable, unless you have small hands. The Joy-Cons are the most important piece in this whole hybrid console thing, which is why they're also smooth to put it on and remove from accessories. They're very secure on the accessories, and that's to do with the fact that every accessory and the console has metal railings on them, even the straps, which are so bad that they deserve their own video. When these pieces work together, it makes for a fantastic gaming experience. I've enjoyed playing Zelda on and away from my TV, and I've enjoyed laughing away, playing snipper clips, and zooming through the tracks with Mario Kart 8 with a friend. I'll be patient to wait for more games like Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, FIFA, and NBA 2K18. Even in May, there's still a complete and utter lack of games for the Switch. So what do I think after spending some time with it? Nintendo hasn't exactly put their absolute best into making this system, and it shows. But the lack of games and its other flaws just make the system extremely difficult to give it a must-buy kind of recommendation. But if you're willing to be brave, to pay up and let the system be a part of your home, your daily commute, and your social life, I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time.